Hudson High School Auditorium, 1501 Vine Street, on Tuesday, April 24, 2007, at 7 o'clock in the evening. I'll begin this meeting with introductions. I'm Dan Chernahoy, President of the Hudson Board of Education. We also have Dick Minnick, Vice President. Clerk Cindy Crimmins is not here this evening. Treasurer Mark Kaiserschad, and then Board Member Brian Bell, Board Member Tracy Haberschaling, and Board Member Tom Holland. Our Superintendent is Mary Bowen Ingebrigtsen. Our Director of Financial Services is Tim Erickson, High School Principal Ed Lucas, and our parliamentarian this evening is Mick Walsberger. At this point in time, I'll turn it over to Mick Walsberger.
Good evening. My name is Mick Waldsberger, and it is my privilege to serve as your parliamentarian this evening. Before we begin, I would like to start with a review of the parliamentary procedures or ground rules that we will be following this evening for the special meeting of the electors of the Hudson School District. The procedures are intended to promote an orderly and free-flowing meeting. Each of you who is a citizen of the United States, who is 18 years of age or older, and who has resided in the School District of Hudson for 10 or more days before this special meeting is considered an elector. Each elector here tonight has the right to make comments relating to an agenda item at the appropriate point on the agenda. I want to reiterate that comments at this particular meeting are to relate to agenda items only. If you have other comments that you would like to make relating to other matters, you are encouraged to make them during the public comment session of the next regular monthly school board meeting. Alternatively, you're always free to submit those in writing to the administration. When we get to item 7 on the agenda, which is titled Comments from the Electorate Regarding Proposed Purchase of Real Estate and Facility, you as electors will be provided with the opportunity to make comments and to ask questions if you have any questions. If you're an elector and you desire to make comments or ask questions, the procedure to follow is this. You must come to the microphone, state your first and last name, state your address, and then wait to be recognized by the chair. After you have been recognized by the chair, you may then proceed with your comments. Only one elector may speak at any one time, and no elector should speak more than once on the same subject. If a large number of people desire to speak, the chairperson may limit the amount of time for comments and questions to 5 minutes per person. As an elector, you have the right to make motions relating to an agenda item at the special meeting. The proper time to make motions is when we reach item 4 and item 8 on the agenda. The procedure for making motions is as follows. If you desire to make a motion, you must come to the microphone. Again, you must state your first and last name, you must state your address, and then wait to be recognized by the chair. After you've been recognized by the chairperson, you should then go ahead and make your motion. By way of example, for item 8 on the agenda, an elector might properly state, I move to authorize the Hudson School Board to purchase the real estate and connected facility located at 644 Brocky Drive, Hudson, Wisconsin. That would be the proper form for a motion if you would intend to make one. After a motion has been made, another elector must second the motion in order for it to be heard. Once the motion has been seconded, the chair will restate the motion, and at that time, the motion may be debated or it may be put to a vote. After any debate has occurred, the chairperson will put the question to a vote. Item 8 on the agenda, as I've indicated, is an action to authorize the purchase of property and a building that is on that property. Here, a referendum is not necessary and is not appropriate because the district is not borrowing any money or issuing any bonds in connection with the purchase of the building. If any elector believes that debate has become too lengthy in regard to the motion, the elector may move to limit debate. For example, the elector may state, I move to limit debate to a total of 10 minutes. You would then vote on whether or not to accept that motion. I would encourage the electors to use that sparingly, as this is an opportunity where we want to encourage input from our residents. Alternatively, an elector may move the previous question. By moving the previous question, an elector is moving to have a vote on the pending motion immediately and without any further debate. Because that's an extraordinary motion, a two-thirds vote is required to pass it. As an elector, you have the right to vote at this special meeting, as I've indicated, and all voting will be by voice vote. Generally, all in favor of a motion will be asked to say aye, and all opposed will be asked to say no or nay. If the vote on a motion is close or unclear, the chairperson or I will ask the electors who said aye to stand and then verbally count off using numbers beginning with the number 1. After you would count off your number, you would then sit down. The same procedure will then be used to count the noes or the nay votes, and then the chairperson will announce the result of the vote. The chairperson has the legal authority to accept a challenge to the eligibility of any person who is attempting to vote at this special meeting. If the person who has been challenged declares that he or she is in fact eligible to vote pursuant to the definition of elector, which I have provided to you, and the challenge is not withdrawn thereafter, the chairperson must administer the following oath or affirmation to the person. And the oath reads, "Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you are an actual resident of the School District of Hudson and are qualified, according to law, to vote at this special meeting?" Now, having reviewed the meeting procedures, the next item on our agenda, which is item 4, calls for the election of a chairperson to preside over the special meeting of electors. Once a nomination is made, I will ask if anyone is willing to second that nomination. If so, a vote will be taken on the nomination. If there is no second, the vote will fail for a lack of a second. At this time, I am asking for nominations, and that means that any elector may now approach a microphone, either up here or there, and voice a nomination for chairperson.
Annette Cook, 669 Edie Lane, Hudson, Wisconsin, and I nominate Dan Chernahoy as chairperson for this meeting.
Dan Chernahoy has been nominated to be the chairperson. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
We have a first and a second. All in favor of nominating Dan Chernahoy to preside as the chairperson of this special meeting of electors, say aye. Aye. All opposed to nominating Dan Chernahoy to preside as the chairperson of this special meeting, say no. The ayes carry, the vote passes, and Dan Chernahoy has been nominated and voted to be our chairperson.
Thank you, Mick, and thank you, electors. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is a report on the proposed purchase of property for district offices and high school reconfiguration. At this time, I'll turn it over to Mary, Superintendent Mary.
Good evening to everyone, and I welcome you on behalf of the Hudson School District. It's so good to see so many of you here. I've seen this picture before where people sit in the back. I don't understand why, but I do appreciate you spending the time this evening on a very important decision for all of us. This is a decision where we're considering a solution to providing additional space at the high school for our students. And that's something that we need to keep in mind as we move forward this evening. It's really about providing additional space for our high school students to learn and for our teachers to teach. So as we move forward, I ask that you keep that in mind. I'll be sharing information along with Tim Erickson, our Director of Financial Services, and Ed Lucas, the principal of the high school. We'll be talking about some of the background on the board's decision-making. We'll be talking about the property that the board is recommending that we purchase and the advantages, the primary advantages of the solution, the purchase price and the financing for that, and then also what space does this provide at the high school? What does this do for this building? Since that's really our goal tonight, is to look at providing an additional space for learning. I hope you all have a handout. If not, there should be some extra copies in the back of the room. And we'll move forward. As you know, the Hudson School District certainly has a history of growth. We are in a growing area, and we have continued to grow for a number of years. Looking at the high school, we have a current capacity with the district offices located in the wing of the high school a capacity of 1520. So that's with the district offices located in the high school. And if we look at our enrollment and then forward to projections, last year in September, we had 1603. That was our actual enrollment in September of students in 9th through 12th grade, district resident students. And we were over that capacity by 83 seats, or short space for 83 students. Going on to this year, we have an actual enrollment in September of just a little under 1,700. And again, that increased how much we're over capacity. Now, we weren't expecting quite that many students, because when we looked at the projections for this year, it was closer to 1,670. We had a 6% increase in our enrollment at the high school, and that was very significant. And as a result, it really blew past our projections for about the next 5 years. And as you look at the next few years and the projections, they're actually under the number of students we had in the fall. So as we look forward to 2007, 2008, certainly a question in our mind is, how many students will we have? We had a very experienced demographer, Dr. Hazel Reinhardt, who is well known in both Wisconsin and in Minnesota, do projections out into the future about our enrollment so that we could plan. And as she looked forward, she saw in our middle school smaller classes in the middle school coming up to the high school, but then followed by much larger classes in the elementary. So there was a leveling off that she was predicting during this year and moving forward. And so that's why you can see those numbers kind of stay close to the same in her projections. But that only happens for a few years as those elementary students continue to move through the system and more students come and join us because of the good news about the Hudson School District. And in 2016, 2017, in a 4-year high school, she projects that we'll have 2,000 students here. And that is certainly over the capacity of the high school with the district offices here by 545 student seats. Now, the solution that we're talking about this evening, we're looking at it as a short-term solution and a long-term solution, a possible long-term solution, but it isn't a long-term solution for space in our secondary schools. We have issues both at the high school and also at the middle school. So this is a solution that we're looking to provide space at the high school for the short term, to give us some time to determine, as a community, a long-term solution for secondary space. If we just go back to next year, 2007, 2008, and we roll up our enrollments 1 year ahead. So our 8th graders become 9th graders, our 11th graders become 12th graders, and so on. We roll them up and we use Hazel's formula. Our numbers next year would be 1695. So we can't tell you exactly what those numbers will actually be, but we certainly will be over the current capacity of the high school. Now, if we would move the district offices out of the high school, the capacity increases by 160 seats. So we're now at 1680. And so looking at some of those same numbers again, and those projections, we level off for a couple years again based on her projections, and we are under the capacity, so basically we're at capacity for 2007 and 2008, unless we again increase more than expected or stay the same. Again, we're looking forward to 2016, 17, and we're looking at 2,000 students. And once again, we're over capacity, this new larger capacity, by about 400 students. The board spent quite a bit of time looking at short-term solutions. It started with the Facilities and Grounds Committee that's chaired by Dick Minnick, our vice president of the board. And they started in the fall after we had this kind of enrollment growth at 6% at the high school. And then the board took up additional deliberation in January. We looked at 3 final options. There were a number of options that were considered first, but the board centered on 3 final options. One was locating a modular structure on the EP Rock site. And they considered that these 3 solutions, leasing existing office space and purchasing existing office space together so they could analyze the return on investment for each one, compare the solutions. And so looking at that modular structure, the final conclusion was that the return on investment was low. The rock site itself is about a couple acres under the recommended size for the number of students at that site. And this takes up space that is current, or if we put a building up on that site, it would take up space that's currently being used by the community and by the school itself. This structure would be a very basic structure, the one that the board considered, and as a result, that would have a significant impact on the community that surrounds it, the neighbors. So as a result, the board moved looking at leasing existing office space, and then is recommending to you to authorize them to purchase existing office space. And Tim Erickson's going to talk more specifically about each of those options in comparison. So the endorsed solution that the board wants you to consider this evening is to purchase the space at 644 Brocky Drive in the town of Hudson with a purchase price of $1,450,000. We had an independent appraisal done of that property, and the appraisal price is the same as, or the appraisal amount value is the same as that purchase price. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to see the building. The building's located on the north side of Exit 4 off of I-94 in the industrial park, and it's right next to the tennis court. It's a modest, conservative-looking building in appearance and certainly meets our needs in a number of ways for office space. So looking at what does it do for us, primary advantages. Again, our primary reason for being here is to provide additional space at the high school for learning. So it provides 7 additional high school classrooms, and Ed Lucas is going to talk about some other things that it provides as well. It provides 10,000 square feet of office space. We have approximately 25 district office workers who support the work in our schools. And we are currently in space, about 8,700 square feet of office space. That doesn't include the restrooms and so forth. So when we looked at that, we're looking at our space is quite limited. There's offices being shared. We are out of meeting space almost on a daily basis. We're using meeting space out in the community. And so looking ahead, say 5 years, we felt that conservatively we needed 10,000 square feet of office space to support a growing district. We were looking for conservative office space that supports efficiency and effectiveness of the services that we provide to support the work that our teachers do and our staff do in the schools to support student learning. And so we purposely looked at spaces that were not expensive in the community, but were at a very conservative or modest cost. Knowing that we needed 10,000 square feet, and in our community there is quite a bit of office space, but it's in smaller segments. It may be 1,500 square feet, but to find 10,000 in one place limited some of the spaces that we looked at. But we were very intentional to make sure that this was conservative and modest in what we were looking at. We looked at the space, providing us both a short-term solution and could it also provide us a long-term solution. The space that the board is recommending to purchase certainly provides a short-term, and we're thinking of 5 years in that short-term, time to use as office space. And at the end of that term, if it was short, what would we do with the space? That's the question we asked. Does it give us the flexibility? And certainly if it is space that is not on our site It allows us the opportunity to possibly sell that space and get that return on our investment. And Tim's going to talk once again more about that. But because it's not on our site, we have the opportunity to consider purchase or selling that after a 5-year period, 6-year period, sometime in the future. The district offices moved into the high school about 13 years ago, and it was considered a short-term solution. So that short-term solution turned into 13 years, and just knowing the history of the district, knowing that we're growing, knowing that we don't have all the answers toward the future, we wanted to make sure that the solution could also become a long-term solution. And so this office space that's being recommended again has the possibility of being a long-term solution. I want to go back to the short-term. One of the things I forgot to say was, as a short-term solution, we could sell the space. We also have the opportunity to consider it, to repurpose it in the future. I know Principal Lucas would like to have a site for an alternative high school in the future, and so that there are possibilities for us to actually consider repurposing the space as well. The space is located off our school sites. Now, I know people in our community, certainly in our school community as well, have thought of building on the high school site, building on another site. That's one of the options that we considered. But when we looked at that and now how many students may be here in the future, knowing that at the present time we have about 1,700, which could grow to 2,000 on this site. This site is undersized based on recommendations. The high school site is about 43 acres. If we looked at how many it should have if we had 1680 students, it should be 57 acres. So 43 to 57. It's quite a big difference. If we look at increasing the number of students who may be on this site in the future, we may have to add additional space on this site. It might not be our first solution and maybe a temporary solution, but we felt that we needed to save the space on the site for a possible short-term solution in the future. The cost of the office space is comparable. Again, Tim will address that in just a few minutes. And the location is accessible. Certainly, we have had the good fortune of being centrally located, which is a great advantage, but finding 10,000 square feet of office space centrally located in our community is very difficult with the kind of conditions that we were looking for. So our next best, since we couldn't be centrally located if we were off-site, we looked at being accessible. Being next to the interstate is very helpful. This location actually provides the opportunity for us to go to our schools, and it takes about 5 minutes more to most schools except for the high school itself. So it's a good location for us. Now I think Tim's going to talk about all those things I mentioned a few minutes ago.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here. I appreciate you all coming and taking all of the information into consideration. The chart up above shows you lease cost and purchase, and when we looked at the time period that the superintendent referred to over the 5 years, if we look at the green, the column in green, that's addressing lease cost. And if we took the annual lease payments and multiplied them over a 5-year period, we'd be looking at total lease payments of about $1,155,000 over that 5-year period. The proposed building will need some renovation to make it work for our office, and we're estimating that to be about a total of $200,000. During the lease discussions with the owners of the property, they're willing to give a $100,000 allowance on those build-out costs, so that leaves a net of $100,000. We'll also have to invest in some technology infrastructure to run our various computer systems, and that's about $19,000. Closing costs would not be applicable, of course, because this is a lease situation. So total capital investment would be $1,274,000. The estimated value after 5 years would be, of course, zero. Again, it's a lease. We're not building any equity in that building. And the estimated cost to sell also would not be applicable in that example. So the total estimated net capital cost after 5 years is $1,274,000. Now, when we started to look at the purchase of the building, the purchase price has been negotiated to $1,450,000. The build-out costs in this example, we'd be assuming all of the build-out costs of $200,000. The technology infrastructure stays the same, and the closing costs of about $6,000. So the total capital investment is $1,675,000. We're conservatively estimating the value of that building to be the same as what we've paid for it. We do assume that there will be some modest price appreciation over that time period, but just to be conservative, we're assuming that estimated value would be the same as the purchase price of $1,450,000. And again, assuming that we went to sell this building after the 5 years, we'd probably incur some selling costs of approximately $80,000. But you can see when you compare the two, the leasing on the left and the purchase on the right, the estimated net cost is quite significant, $1,274,000 versus $305,000 over the 5-year period. In the next chart, we're showing the example of approximately when the total lease costs, the cumulative lease costs over a period, and this looks at a period of 10 years, where it intersects with the purchase price, meaning when do the lease costs approach the purchase price of the property. And you can see in the example, in the graph, it's in year 6. We're getting very close to the purchase price of $1,450,000. And again, that's why the decision was made that it seems to be much more financially feasible to purchase the property rather than to lease it. And this is a table showing the same information, and so between year 6 and 7, the amount of cumulative lease payments paid over years 6 and 7 approach the proposed purchase price of the property. And you can see down at that bottom column that the cumulative lease expense is $1,403,577 versus the purchase price of $1,450,000. So in this example, as you go out into your 10-year period, if you go beyond 6 years into year 10, you can see all the way on the far right column, your 10-year total lease payments are $2,461,000. And so we really feel that this provides a short-term as well as a long-term solution, and it provides some flexibility. The purchasing provides flexibility over leasing. We've been working during this process with Brian Zeller of Greystone Commercial Realty, and during the process we did get market information on comparable office space, and he did talk to a local appraiser in town and collected information on that. And the chart here that you're looking at right now shows the high price per foot and the low price per foot paid for comparable office space. So the low is $105 per square foot. The high ranges all the way up to $199 in most recent sales information. And then we convert the purchase price of the property that we're looking at equals $115. So you can see that the purchase price per square foot of this property is on the low end of that range of low to high prices. The next chart looks at average low, average high, and again comparing that to the purchase price of the property. The average low price paid in the Hudson area for a commercial office space was $114, and the average high was $150. So you can see again, $115 per square foot is what is being proposed here tonight, and that falls on the low end of the average. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about the total cost to purchase the building, equip it, and also convert the current office space here in the high school back to classroom space. If we go back to the previous pages, for purchasing the building, the purchase price, the improvements, and the technology, that totaled $1,675,000. We're looking at the conversion of the classroom space over 2 phases. The first phase is to do the very basics. Because of the tight timelines, and we want to make sure that we're able to finish up, obviously, before school starts, to do the very basics would be about $96,000 to convert those offices that we have right now into classroom space. You'll see down at the very bottom, there's a small footnote. In the 2008-2009 budget, Phase 2 of the conversion would take place, and that's estimated at $40,000. The majority of that amount is for asbestos abatement in floor tiles and replacing the flooring. So you see the total of both of those, to purchase the building and to reconvert reconvert to classroom space, is $1,771,000. Now, how are we going to pay for that? The pie chart shows how we'd be paying for that purchase and the conversion of classroom space. And the board had designated to set aside $1.3 million of fund balance, of general fund balance, for short-term secondary space solutions. And so the majority of the dollars to fund the project will come from that fund balance. And then we looked at capital projects in the current budget, and we were to reallocate and reprioritize some of those projects. We were able to free up another $295,000. So that left a remaining $176,000 left to fund that total of $1,771,000. And the board has approved to take that additional $176,000 if needed out of the additional fund balance. So again, $1.3 million from designated fund balance, $295,000 from reallocating projects out of the current year's budget, and then an additional $176,000 if needed to get to that total of $1,771,000. And now Principal Ed Lucas is going to talk a little bit about the reconfiguration of the classroom space. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for having the opportunity to address the board and talk about the changes that we would like to see occur at the high school. It's hard to believe that back in 1998, when I came to the district, this high school had about 1,200 students in it. And presently, we are at about 1,700 students. So I've seen this building grow, and I've seen our space evolve over the last years, and we currently have maximized the amount of space that we have in the building. We have even gone to the extremes of using storage rooms, and we've converted an old greenhouse that we had at the top of the building to our teachers' lunchroom area. Otherwise, teachers would be forced to eat in their rooms by themselves, and we really don't have any consistent gathering space for those teachers as well. On the floor diagram, you can see the areas highlighted in red, and those are the current classrooms that central offices will vacate for us. And those classrooms each range are about 900 square feet in classroom space. The west side of our building, the area that's located around those red rooms, are classrooms of comparable size. As we move to the east side of the building, to your far right, when you get to the east, to the right of the east gym, those classrooms vary considerably in size, from about 700 square feet to about 900 square feet. So the average classroom size that we would like to see for a high school class would be about 900 square feet. The blue areas indicate the programs that would move into two of the office area, or two of the central areas, rooms 536 and 538. We currently have IT located in the area up to the upper left of 536 and 538. And what we would do is move IT, our technology department, into those two rooms, primarily because those rooms are located directly next to the entrance on the west side of our building. Keeping IT in its present place would force us to have all of the adults who come into the building that are associated with IT, those adults would have to go through our central office, which is located on the east side of the building. So there would be some remodeling that would take place to lock off the door by room 538 so that we could secure the building and make it safer. In addition to the two areas moving into those two classrooms, we also have our IT support, our video technician, Art Forrester, who is located in room 122 to the right. He would also move in with IT into that area. And room 122 is about 650 square feet. It's a small classroom, but it is very usable space. And in addition to one more person moving into IT, we would also have to find additional storage space for the equipment that is currently in Art's room. Okay. Oh, I got to back up, excuse me. Can someone help me back this thing up, please? Got quick on the trigger finger. There we go. The different colored rooms that we're going to additionally add are located in the lower left-hand corner. And by central moving out, we have several teachers who are on carts who travel from room to room, and we are going to do some shifting, and this is the configuration for the new locations of rooms in the central area. And you'll see on a later slide that the rooms are going to change considerably throughout the building. I'll start with, if you look up to the far right, you'll see room 113, 114 in an orange area. We're going to move that into the IT area. The pink portion of IT is currently about 800 square feet. And room 113 and 114 are separated by a wall right now, and those rooms are approximately 500 square feet. By opening up that room into one classroom, we'll make it into a Spanish room. We currently have a Spanish teacher on a cart, and that will give us one full-size classroom. That allows us to move that program from 113, which is a special education program, from a room of 500 square feet to about 800 square feet, which is more adequate for it. We also house our in-school suspension in room 114, and we'll move that to room 120, which is a room of comparable size or just a little bit smaller. As we go back to the far left, you'll see the blue area, and I believe it's room 547. Our hearing impaired and our vision impaired teachers currently occupy a small office area that is about 100 square feet, and they have several students in that room, and it becomes very congested. It's very difficult to work in that area. Moving to the new area would give those teachers each a separate office area, which would be about 100 square feet, and more room to successfully deliver their programs. Rooms, moving back to the right, room 321, 320, 323, we have 3 German teachers in the German department, and we would move the entire German department over into the central area. That allows us to take a teacher on a cart in social studies, put them in one of the rooms, take a teacher who is on a cart in math, put them in one of the rooms, and then add a computer lab to that area, which is significant because we no longer have an additional computer lab. If some of you remember, we took our career center, remodeled that, and made that into a combination career center computer lab, and it is used quite heavily throughout the day. And our other computer lab that we have is located in our library as part of our library. And that is used heavily, and there is not enough space for computer usage in the building. So this will be a tremendous advantage for us, especially because it's on the east side of the building for our social studies department. Our English department is located on the west side, and they currently use the computer lab quite heavily as well. We also have one of the classrooms being used as an English room, and we have one of our English teachers on a cart, and that English teacher also teaches our ELL program, and he is currently housed in a converted dark room that we had for photography lab, which is about 250 square feet. So that person would have an opportunity to have a large classroom. I believe that covers the rooms that we will be shifting around. Now, with moving these rooms, of course, there is a domino effect. And like too quick of a finger. Okay. Well, the area that you saw that was highlighted in pink was the area of all of the changes that are going to occur at the high school. And because of the space opening up with the central offices, we are able to open up additional classes, shift some programming around, and make the building more efficient depending on the programs that we are delivering throughout the high school. In summary, what it does is it gives us an opportunity to be much more effective in delivering our programs. It makes our building operate more efficiently. And we've been working on shifting things around for many, many years, and this will help us. But again, it is just a short-term solution for us because we know that the population is going to continue to grow. We've maximized our efficiency in the building, and we will class sizes will continue to rise as we get more and more students. As we look at central leaving, of course, we have to look at some of the safety issues that we're going to benefit from as well. One of those, of course, would be the number of adults that will be leaving with Central. We're looking at approximately 21 additional adults on campus, and that will eliminate a considerable amount of traffic. In addition, we have many, many other vendors coming into the building. We have trainers that are coming into the building. Teachers are coming continually to the high school for staff development programs. That is going to be a great elimination of excessive traffic. We are already struggling with not having enough parking space. We currently use St. Pat's across the street, and as our class sizes continue to rise, the number of parking spaces diminish as well. And we would rather spend the money and put the money into classrooms and put the money into programmings. We can live with less parking spaces, but the safety issue is something that we are concerned about. And having less adult traffic, less adult visitors in the building is going to help our safety situation immensely. So we are pleased at the high school to be able to have this additional space available, and student learning will benefit as a result of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. And, excuse me. Thank you for the other reports as well from Tim and Mary. At this point on the agenda, item number 6, we'll move on to Board of Education comments. And at this time, we'll open it up for board members who wish to make comments about the item on the agenda, and possibly my chair of the Facility and Grounds Committee might kick things off.
Thank you, Dan. I'm just going to make just really very, very brief comments. 2 comments. One is the school board has worked diligently to arrive at this recommendation tonight, and I want to compliment my fellow board members because we've spent numerous hours going through the various options. The second thing I would just say is that, may not be the ideal solution for some board members of the board, but it is a unanimous decision that's coming in front of the voters this evening. And just a final comment, when it does go to a public vote tonight, I would encourage the folks that may think that by voting no, it's going to expedite a quicker long-term secondary solution. And I would venture to say that is not going to be correct. So I'm going to recommend and hope that we have a positive vote this evening.
Thank you, Dick. Other board members wish to make comments? Tom?
Just as a member of the Facilities and Grounds Committee, I think that I'd like to just iterate to this electorate that there was a lot of study that's gone into this. We've gone back and forth with a number of different options. None of us were really settled on one. To begin with, there was some pretty animated discussions, I think, and I believe we've arrived at the right solution. We feel so. We're confident bringing this to you tonight, that this is the appropriate next step for us as we try to continue to address the needs of our secondary capacities. So.
Thank you. Any other board member comments? I'll just share with you some of what went into my decision-making process as one board member. This was a very difficult decision for me, but I came to the conclusion that it was the best direction for the school district to go. And just to tick off a couple of the items that I thought factored into my decision in support of this was, one, it further maximizes what we're able to get out of this building in terms of classroom space for our students. It also enhances the security of the school. The fact that this space would be dedicated to students and having a single entrance for students to go into, and especially in light of the tragedy of last week, I think security is on the minds of all of us, and anything we can do to further secure this facility and all of our school facilities is of the utmost importance. It also provides a facility for the district offices that's dedicated for their use and purposes, which I think is important. The new building would also be located in an area where a lot of the growth in the community is occurring. It is fairly easy to access, being close to the freeway and all the major highway road arteries. It's also an investment of the district dollars. That's sort of how I see it, is instead of leasing dollars, we're actually investing in something. Not that we're in the business here of investing dollars, but I do think that we have to make wise decisions and make choices that we think are in the best interest of the school district. It's also in an area, commercial area, that I believe, with the growth occurring in that part of the school district, that if we do decide to resell it in a number of years, that I think we'll at the very least get what we put into it. We also chose to use the fund balance for this decision instead of including this on the recent referendum. So we're choosing to use existing dollars that we have. And I'd like to echo some of Ed's comments in terms of using this facility more effectively and efficiently. And I really think that's important, being able to restore some of where the classroom space should be and where it makes sense to have certain classrooms. And finally, as someone that's always, I guess, concerned about budget issues, the overall cost, I thought, was consistent with what we had budgeted and what we had available for this expenditure. So, that said, unless any other board members have comments, we'll move on. It's at this point on the agenda that we accept or hear comments from our electorate regarding the proposed purchase of real estate in the facility. And I'll just reiterate what our parliamentarian had indicated earlier. The procedure for making comments: if you are an elector and you desire to make comments or to ask questions, you must come to one of the two microphones, state your first name and last name, state your address, and then wait to be recognized by the chairperson. After you've been recognized by the chair, you may then proceed with the comments. Only one elector may speak at a time, and no elector should speak more than once on the same subject. Given the large number of folks here, I would encourage individuals to limit their comments if possible. Thank you. Excuse me. The ultimate wrongdoing for a chair. Sorry about that. Any comments from the public?
Robert McClensky, 1301 Freer Street, Hudson. My son Joe will be a junior in this high school next year. After the first day of school next fall, I'm going to ask him this question. Joe, how do you like the high school now that you have those 7 new classrooms we've heard so much about? Everything must be pretty great around there now, right? And I promise you I'll get a blank stare in response. That's because neither Joe nor any other student is going to notice any difference in this high school whatsoever. They will continue to push their way through the crowded hallways with their 40-pound backpacks. They'll eat in that crowded cafeteria. They'll have to walk outside to get to their classes. They're going to use all the outdated facilities in this building, and they're going to continue to sit in their small, windowless classrooms. But the question is, who will be noticing a difference next year? Well, it'll be the members of the administration team. They're going to be moving out of their cramped, dingy, old offices that have those paper-thin walls, and they're going to be moving into their larger, newer, up-to-date, top-notch office space. There's no question they are going to notice a big difference on their first day there. So I have to question, what is the message that you are sending to the public tonight? The message that's coming through to me loud and clear is that the comfort of your highly paid administration comes first around here. It comes before one single word has ever been spoken by anybody on this stage, or a single minute has been spent by anybody on this stage to talk about a new high school for a student. No one has said a word. Moving the administration comes first, moving the students comes last. Like it or not, say it ain't so till you're blue in the face, but that's the message you're sending to the public tonight. That's why I'm going to vote no on this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Are there others that wish to speak?
My name is Roy Schulberg. I'm at 1108 Vine Street. And Bob, you and I see eye to eye on a lot of issues. We're usually on the same page, but in this time I think you're wrong. And I respect from where you're coming from, and I'll be your ally probably at the next meeting. But at this meeting, I think cooler heads and a more reasonable position has to take place here. And I think if Ed Lucas thinks it's good for this high school to have those 7 classrooms made available, and for all those teachers that are now in carts, even if it's for 3 years, I think we need to go there. It's not a permanent solution, but it's a good short-term solution. But I'll be there with you, Bob, when we press this school board to get on with it like New Richmond has and get our new high school going as soon as possible. But again, Bob, nothing but respect for you, but in this case, I disagree.
Thank you, Roy. Others that wish to speak? State your name and address, please.
Yeah, my name is Craig Moore. I live at 1231 3rd Street. And I'm looking at this lease versus purchase expense. And unless I misunderstand this, typically when you lease something, a lot of the maintenance is taken care of. Something goes wrong, whoever is leasing the property will come fix it. Where is the maintenance cost on the purchase side for a fair comparison?
Tim, do you wish to answer that?
Sure. For purposes of the discussion, we've kept it on the large cost items, which are more along the lines of capital. However, we did also consider operating costs in the purchase of this facility, and we're estimating those to be roughly $70,000 to $75,000 per year, which we would pick up into our current budgets. We would also have costs of roughly $40,000 per year under the lease agreement, the way the lease agreement was written. We do have custodial costs in that agreement that are not taken care of through the lease. Repairs and maintenance would be covered if it was a lease situation, but we do have other costs, operating costs in that lease that are outside of the lease agreement. Pardon me, can you?
In the 5-year lease cost, it says $1,155,000. Does that include that $40,000 you're talking about?
That does not, these are just capital costs, so it does not include
that additional
operating.
amount.
Right, no, it does not include that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Carl Dyrby. I live at 168 Starwood in Hudson. And I have a couple of comments and also some questions to you. Some of you will recall 3.5 years ago or so, a group of concerned citizens proposed that 7 additional classrooms should be created at the high school. This could be done by moving the district offices out and into lease space in Hudson. As you also will recall, the chief administrator at the time turned down the proposal as being too expensive. Moving cost would be high, and refurbishing cost alone would run into $250,000 or more. And now we are told, or you want us to believe, that refurbishing cost is $96,000. It's amazing how the price has gone down. However, the board should be congratulated finally having embraced the proposal of 3.5 years ago. Better late than never. But there still are some questions. You have shown a lot of numbers, but the numbers did not include any moving cost. And the numbers, probably conveniently, seemingly overlooked the loss of interest on $1.45 million. That could well be around $100,000 a year, which would go a long ways towards paying off the lease cost if you would lease instead of buying this poorly fitted property. Let's not forget the property has been for sale now for more than a year. It's in a very poor location. It's 4 miles away from the current office. Running fiber optics 4 miles would cost a fortune, and I don't see that cost anywhere included in your cost estimate. Let's not forget that the district at the time, a few years ago, paid a lot of money to connect all the buildings with fiber optic cables because it was so important to have very fast and safe communication between the buildings. So what happened to the office? Now 4 miles away and no fiber optic cable. And if you would find the money to run it, how would you recover that cost if you sell the building 5 years from now, when you're more likely than not are going to find yourself with a ton of surplus space? I see absolutely no justification for risking taxpayers' dollars in a highly speculative purchase of a poorly located and apparently undesirable office building. The last question I have is that I assume the legal counsel to the district has vetted the proposed purchase. Therefore, please confirm that the proposed transaction truly is at arm's length and that no management employee of the district or any school board member has any ownership interest in the proposed property or ties whatsoever to the sellers of the property. Thank you.
Okay, any other? Tim, do you wish to respond?
Sure, I can address the fiber optics. We have looked at that cost, and what we've looked at, and when I previously addressed the previous question on operating costs, a fiber optics lease is included in that cost. Now, we may need to discuss that further, whether that would be a lease or a purchase or an install, but right now we're assuming it would be a lease because we're looking at this more on a shorter-term basis. So that cost is included. It is provided for. The other option that we do have is a possible wireless network, which would possibly lower those costs down. And so those are the two options that we are looking at currently. And yes, in regard to the purchase and the independence of the school district versus the parties that own the building, to our knowledge, they are not related to anyone in the district. It is an arm's length transaction.
Just a couple other items. It was my understanding that this property was under a lease up until just this last February, so it may have been up for sale, but it was under a lease. Also, as it relates to the financial interest that you alluded to, there's no board member that has any kind of financial interest related to the transaction or the building, and so that has not occurred. Priscilla?
Priscilla Wyeth, 611 12 Oaks Lane. I had the honor to serve on the Hudson School Board for 6 years. During that time, I was on the Facilities and Grounds Committee, so I have more than passing interest in and knowledge of the issues of the space crisis the district finds itself in. Moving the administration out to a district services center is long overdue. The 7 classrooms freed up by the move will not solve the crowding at the high school, but it will ease it somewhat while other long-term solutions are implemented. The district's decision to purchase a building rather than lease space is fiscally sound and financially smart. Like buying a house instead of renting an apartment, it allows the district to build equity rather than get no return for its expenditures. It gives the administration the space to arrange offices in ways that make sense operationally and for workflow, something not possible with the fixed and limited space in the high school. This decision also implements another recommendation of the Facilities Planning Task Force. This dedicated and foresighted group has given our district a blueprint for action, and I am pleased to see the district moving ahead. While this move to a district services center is a sound one, and as I said, long overdue, it does not solve the problem of crowding and inadequate facilities for a 21st century education. It is, however, a good step in the right direction, and I applaud the school district.
Thank you, Priscilla. Others?
Can't do it again. Would it be too much to ask to have the cost of the lease versus purchase comparison rerun, taking into account the loss of interest on the $1,475,000. If you do that, I think you will see that the break-even point moves far out. It's not 6 years, it's probably 8 or 9 years, which is much more the reason for leasing and not purchasing.
Okay, thank you. What we'd like to do is allow everyone who hasn't spoken have that opportunity to speak. Thank you. Go ahead.
Ann Scharfenberg, 941 Becky Circle. I'm here as a parent. I have 2 girls currently enrolled at the high school. I have a senior and a sophomore, an 8th grader that's coming up next year. So I have a vested interest in your plan that you have proposed here. One of my concerns when I came here was the security of your school, and I'm glad that Mr. Lucas addressed that moving off-site, you will take care of the adults that are coming into your building. A point of clarification, a question I have for you. You mentioned that you'll have a single entrance. Are you going to limit access for students during the day to use the parking lot as a cut between the different entrance points and force them to come through by the offices?
Ed, can you answer that question?
In our safety plan, we will, as I said, look at the reconfiguration of those e-stores. We're also looking at a plan right now to lock off our front doors and put them on timers so that students and adults will have to use one main entrance. That's part of a long-range plan that we have. It is expensive to be able to do that, to put those timers on. We are also currently, at the present time, we have one main entrance, which is at the front of the building. We'll continue to have that main entrance so that adults or other visitors cannot access the property from any other location. So students and adults will be monitored through the current process that we have right now.
Okay, so students will continue to be able to try to avoid the congestion in the hallways by leaving the school, passing outside and then re-entering?
Yes.
Okay, and that's a concern that I have, and I'm glad that you are taking steps to address that, because as we well know that while you're addressing the overcrowding in the classrooms, there's many other issues, the hallways, the inadequate facilities in the kitchen, and my comment to this board would be, while I know you don't want to bring up anything else, I'm actually with Bob here on that. If we say yes to your proposal to move off-site, please don't take it as this is an adequate solution in the long term. As a parent, this proposal is not something that I want my 8th grader to have to live through for 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others from the...
John Schomer, 317 West Grove Road, Hudson. Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here tonight, and I come here to applaud you. I've been involved with board operations for over 20 years, and over that 20-year time, I've seen the offices moved, relocated, remodeled, and many, many tens of thousands of dollars spent on that. I think it's long overdue that the district has a central office. I think you'll find your temporary may become the permanent. And I know that there are other problems with the high school and middle school population and class size. You have to take one step at a time. It's like somebody told me, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. This is the first bite. It gets you some more time. We can see by evidence in New Richmond that large bond referendums are doable. They're probably necessary, but it takes one step at a time, and you must alleviate some of the problems here at the high school, and this one is long overdue, and I applaud you for your decision. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Any others?
Steve Hermson, 813 Harborview Road. Dan and board members, I think you guys know I've been visiting your board and committee quite often, and I've had quite an interest in this for a year and a half, 2 years. But I'm really torn at this plan, and as much as I view this as a method of getting more space at the high school, and I don't fault you guys for, doing this. This is it's a step in the direction you want to go. The part that I'm concerned with is the taxpayer's dollar. That's where I look at this all the time. And I guess my first question that I've got is, I looked up on the on the St. Croix County website, the value of this property. You got two buildings that are side by side, this 644 and 642. The both of them combined, according to the St. Croix County market value, is $2.1 million. I found that really amazing, that how did we get to 1.4 on one building? The taxes that by the school district purchasing this building, you're taking off the tax roll $25,000, so the residents will have to pick that up. The cost of your build-out costs of $200,000, and listening to Tim here, a big concern I had on that was listening on the cost for the fiber, because we saw there was a huge expense at the time that the fiber went in to the schools now. So it was good to hear that you were saying, well, now I know that that fiber runs along the interstate, and it's probably a short hop over to make that connection and come over, so the price probably is greatly reduced. But the cost per square foot of the space, you had listed in here, if I remember right, was $115 a square foot. Well, if we take that times the actual office space that you're getting at 10,000 square feet, that should only be about $1.15 million. Again, that brings me to the question of the 1.4. The other part that's really interesting is you're saying 25 people is what's going to be relocated out there. 10,000 square feet, averaging 400 square feet per person, that's a whale of an office. So it seems like we have an extravagant amount of space going towards office personnel. I don't see any conservatism coming out of this at all anywhere. And to go back to your sale price of the theory that, well, 5 years out or whatever, we'll sell it. Right now, land prices have been selling for roughly 10% underneath the market value that's listed on the St. Croix County website. The properties that are being foreclosed right now are selling for 20% under fair market value. I really question this 1.4 and how they got to that. That seems awfully high to me. Other than that, that's my only thought at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Quickly, as it relates to how we came to that price, we did mention earlier that we did have it appraised, and as you probably know, the property tax statement value is never the best indicator for value, so that's why we did hire an appraiser to give us that information. Tim, do you wish to respond to any of that?
Sure. Yeah, as Nana mentioned, we did have an independent appraisal done by an appraiser, valuation specialist. That is what they do, is appraise commercial properties. The appraiser that did the appraisal is highly credentialed. And again, the hiring of that firm was also an arm's length transaction. To address the cost per square foot, the 115 is, again, looking at market value. It doesn't include the other costs that we have in the budget, because what we're trying to do is compare apples to apples, and to get that comparison, the information that was given to us by a local appraisal company wouldn't include the build-out or the improvement cost of that property. So again, we're taking the purchase price of $1,450,000, dividing that by 12,566 square feet. Now, 12,566 square feet is total square feet in the building. Now, when you take out, because it's a two-story, you do have circulating space for stairs. The building has an elevator, so you'd also need to subtract out. and the rule of thumb is roughly 20 to 25% on a two-story building, so that leaves us with roughly 10,000 square feet of space that can be used for office. In looking at the calculation of square footage per person, we also need to look at the space. Also has some conference rooms. Again, there was mention that it will have some capacity so that we can bring a few more people together rather than going out in the district when we have meetings that require larger numbers of people. So that, again, a calculation of 400 square feet per person, you'd also have to include the conference room space. And also, we did look at similar sized districts and kind of did that same type of comparison and kind of looking at square feet per person, similar to what was mentioned. And we found that it really is within the calculation. It's not on the high end, however, it's not on the low end either, but it's certainly realistic for our size district when we compared to other districts.
Thank you, Tim. Others from the community?
Brant Worrell, 906 Sally's Alley. I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank the entire board for what I think is a very creative solution to this temporary space problem. But I'm going to ask Mr. Lucas to explain to me and to the audience, what is a teacher on a cart? Thank you.
Ed, what does it look like?
Well, we could maybe say it's kind of like an a la carte. We have many more we have more teachers than what we have classrooms. So as an example, with our Spanish teacher moves around to 6 different classrooms throughout the day. Most of our teachers have their own classrooms, and that is the optimum situation for learning. When teachers have their own rooms, they can prepare in their own rooms, and students come to them. When a teacher moves on a cart, it's very difficult for that teacher to maneuver through the halls. As an example, our Spanish teacher comes from the east side of the building all the way through to our cafeteria for one of his classrooms. And we currently have 5 teachers doing that throughout the building. We're not going to solve the space, have enough rooms for all of those teachers, but it does take care of most of them.
Thank you, Ed. If there's no other comments, we'll move on to the agenda.
Hi, I'm Marcia Earl, 1211 St. Croix Street. I'd like to make a motion, please. I make a motion to authorize the Hudson School Board to purchase for school district purposes the real estate, including the facility and any related structures located at 644 Brackey Drive in Hudson.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'm Kevin Whiteley, 317 Station Lane North. I second the motion.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. And the motion is restated to authorize the Hudson School Board to purchase the real estate and connected facility located at 644 Brackey Drive, Hudson, Wisconsin. We have a motion, it's been seconded. Any further discussion? Please come forward, state your name and address, please.
Ron Tobias, on about Cratley Lane. Why don't we take this $1.675 million and build a new office building on the west side, as close to Vine Street as you can get? You would eliminate the $200,000 build-out cost and the technology infrastructure which could be put in when you build a new one. Now, you're 33 students less next year than we're this year. You made it this year with 175 over. You can make it with 142 next year. If you start building a new one right now, you should have it done by next year with no problem. I just can't see going that far out. And as far as teachers going from room to room with cart, I have to tell you this, I taught in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. I went from room to room. It didn't kill me. The last 2 years I taught, I went to 4 different schools in one day. If you love your job, it's going to go. You people, I know, need your own office space. That's great. Get them out of here. Build your own right on the property that you have here. I'm sure there's adequate space. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? We'll do this by voice vote. All those in favor of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. No. The motion is approved. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for turning out this evening. We really do appreciate it.